My name is Commissioner Frank Avila, and this is Avila Irish CRAIC. And the name of our show today is Celtic Twilight. And as my guest, I have Maire Crawford. Maire Crawford, glad to be on our show, Maire.
Thank you, Frank. Guramila Mahagat, which means thank you, Frank.
In
Gaelic.
In Gaelic.
In Gaelic.
Okay. And then how about the other Gaelic?
Dia is Smiradit, which means God and Mary be with you.
And I do need her to be with me.
Good.
Thank you. You know, Maire Crawford is an award-winning writer, Irish storyteller, and artist. She is well known in Ireland as an actress, and she also ran a children's theater
company,
and she is well known here in the United States also. Maire Crawford has given a lot of talks at Mathers, and when she gives a talk, it's packed to the house because they all want to come and hear her gift of gab.
Thank you.
I think Maire kissed the Blarney Stone.
No, that's one
maybe
thing
she
I
invented
did
the
not
Blarney
do.
Stone.
That's one thing I did not do, Frank. I got up to the top of the castle, and you had to slide out through a hole upwards to kiss the Blarney Stone, and I lost my courage.
Well, you know what? Maire did not have to kiss the Blarney Stone.
I lost my courage.
And so it's a pleasure to having the top writer, as I mentioned, the top Irish storyteller, and a top artist here in the United States and Ireland. Maire, are you an American or
no,
Irish
Frank.
citizen?
I was born in Dublin.
In Dublin?
In 1936. My mother's family had returned from New Zealand, and my mother was the first to be born in Ireland of that family, because my grandfather had been left land and he came home to claim the land. But he brought with him 8 children prior to my mother being born, and she was the first to be born in Ireland. And then my father was a mountainy man from Dublin. He came from a place called Dundrum, outside the outskirts of the city, but he always described himself as a mountainy man from Dublin. But when there would be a football match in Ireland, he would watch the people getting on the television, he would watch the people getting off the train, and he'd say, "There are one-way tickets, they'll never go back." They'll never go back. But I came to the United States in 1976. My husband had a franchise with the Shell Oil Company, where he had a contract to decorate all the garages around Ireland. And there came the oil embargo was the first thing that happened. And then the bank strikes happened one after another. So the company kind of went down. And to save anything that we had in Ireland, we decided that we would come over to the United States, because he had a brother and 3 sisters here at that particular time. And, you know, back then, 35 years ago, it was very hard to get into the United States because you were fit into a criteria. You had to have people here that would claim you and give you monetary help if you needed it for a year after you came. So we were very lucky in the fact that Des was a painter, an old world painter, and when he came to Chicago, he came in on a Thursday and he was working on Friday.
And wasn't he a musician also?
Des was a musician.
Picture with him. He played what?
He played he played classical accordion and piano, and he was a worldwide prize winner in accordion, where he played the William Tell Overture at a competition in Dublin and won first prize.
Now, didn't he start something at the Irish Centre on Music?
Yes, he did. He started we started a choir in Roselle for an Irish priest. One night about 10 o'clock there was a knock on the front door, and this priest was standing there. And he said, "I believe you're from Ireland." And Des said, "Yes." He said, "My friend is the parish priest in Roselle, and he's looking for somebody to do Irish music," where he said an Irish mass one day a month, and then they would have a céilí after the mass. So Des transposed a lot of the mass hymns into Gaelic for him. So we would sing the mass once a month up in the church in Roselle for this Father Smith, whose grandparents came from Connemara. And as a child, he was sent home to Connemara every year. So his heart was there. So Des transposed all these songs into Gaelic, and we would sing the Gaelic mass every month for Father Smith.
You know, my wife sings with the Irish singers.
Yes, she does. Well, those singers were the aftermath of Des's choir.
Oh, actually, because they're very good singers.
Yes.
You know, my wife is a good singer. That because she sings so well.
Well,
I booked her for my wake. She gave me a good price.
She gave me a price. Hopefully that'll be a long time in the future, Frank. Hopefully it'll be a long time in the future.
Now you're a Irish storyteller, right?
I'm an Irish storyteller.
Where did you learn all this from? In Ireland or
you know
going back and forth?
I was always good at elocution.
Yes.
And every time there would be a play in school, I was one of the first people to be picked. My mother said it was because I was brazen and cheeky.
Yeah.
I was brazen and cheeky, but there was only one nun who, I think she delighted out of my talents, you know, which at that time, the nuns made you be very, very quiet and you didn't show off and you didn't do anything out of the ordinary except learn, right? And the method of learning was with a bottle a big stick.
Yes.
And back then, corporal punishment was the theme of the day, so you didn't misbehave, because if you misbehave, you knew you were going to get the stick. Yeah. And you know, Frank, when I think about that, and I see the children being educated today, it was very, very sad, because we were actually physically abused by these orders of nuns. You know, a misspelled word would get you a slap. You know, to look this way or that way in the classroom would get you a slap. And I will always, always remember one Friday afternoon sitting in this classroom that was dismal. There was a spark of a fire in a grate, and outside it was teeming rain. The rain was coming down and slashing against these windows, and we were having a geography lesson. And Mother Baptist was the nun in charge of the geography lesson. So she was 6'2" tall, and she walked around the classroom forever with a cane hanging over her arm and her hands up her habit like this. And she's walking up and down the aisles of children, which were 46 children in a classroom.
Wow, big class.
And you always had to look straight ahead. But during the geography lesson, I mean, I'm talking about during the war now, when all these grains were scarce, she informed the class that the best rice in the world came from the river Po in Italy. Now, everybody knows back then you had a chamber pot underneath the bed at night, and it was called a Po. So my friend Eleanor looked back at me and I looked at her, and the two of us burst out laughing at the mere idea of rice growing in the Po under the bed in the middle of the night. Well, this nun, she took us to the front of the class, and on each hand she delivered 6 slaps with her cane. Now you can imagine a 6'2" nun and 2 little girls and their hands out like this. The hands were so sore for the whole weekend, my mother had to bathe them all the time. And she said to me, "What were you doing? She wouldn't punish you like that if you weren't doing something." Well, of course, when I told the story, my father broke his heart laughing. And Eleanor's mother, first thing Monday morning, there was a knock on the door when Mother Baptist was giving another of her lectures, and she told a child to open the door. The child barely had opened the door when this little woman, about 4'2", ran into the room, went at Mother Baptist, tore the veil off her for hitting her child, right? Now, Eleanor's mother had alopecia, which means she had no hair. So she tore the veil off Mother Baptist, and Mother Baptist knocked the hat off her. So you can imagine 46 young kids going crazy with laughter to see this performance, you know. But I will never ever forget, as long as I live, that the best rice grows in the middle of the Po.
Now let's, how about you telling us a story, one of your Irish, maybe a pagan story.
This Thursday afternoon, I gave a performance in the Maher Cafe on Higgins on pagan Ireland. Now, nobody talks about pagan Ireland very much because the history all comes from St. Patrick. But in essence, when St. Patrick was brought to Ireland, captured as a young boy, it was pagan. And it was there in Ireland, as he minded sheep on the side of a hill, an angel appeared to him and told him to go to Rome and to come back and convert the Irish people to Christianity. Now, he eventually escaped and went back to his hometown and went to Rome to study Catholicism. And he became a bishop. And the Lord's angel came to him and told him to go back to Ireland and convert the people to Catholicism. So when he came back, he went to the hill of Tara, which is not too far from Dublin, and he stood on the hill. And at that time there were 4 kings in Ireland, one for the north, south, east and west. And at this particular time of the year, all fires were extinguished. Nobody was let light a fire.
Oh.
Now, St. Patrick decided that he would light the fire on the hill of Tara, because it was a high point and all these flatlands could see the fire. So when the smoke spiraled up into the air, everybody, oh, fire, a fire. Yeah. Let's go see who has the fire lit in order to see who was disobeying the king. So the armies took off and came to Tara, and when they came to Tara, St. Patrick was standing there, and he tried to explain Christianity to them. And the only way he could explain it to these pagans was to bend down and pick up a shamrock. And he said, you see this plant? It has 3 little leaves, and this is called a shamrock. And he christened the name of the Father, the name of the Son, and the name of the Holy Ghost. And this is how he explained Christianity to the hordes that came to see who had lit the fire. So a lot of the soldiers bent down and kissed the ground and wanted to become Christian. Now the High King said, I will give permission to them to study Christianity, but I will not become a Christian.
Yes.
So some of the armies became Christians and some held on to the pagan rites. And you know, strangely enough, at this time of the year, we're coming up to the Night of the Dead, which is Halloween.
Yes,
and the Holy Saints' Day is the next day. But this time of the year, in Ireland, in the inlets and hamlets, they still celebrate the pagan rite of Halloween. And they go up into the mountains and they have their dance and the tambourines and they dance and they sing the pagan songs. And that's still going on to this day, you know, but it's mostly around the Night of the Dead, and that's the way they celebrate it. Now there was another story about a man who lived on the moors, and he would dig out a turnip and he would put a light inside the turnip, and he would charge a penny for anybody who wanted to cross the bog at night. They would have to have this light. Jack-o'-lantern was his name. So he would carve, and this night an old lady came and she had no penny, and he wouldn't give her the candle. So she's walking across the bog and she falls into a bog hole, and of course she's swallowed up because she had no light. And they say that jack-o'-lantern on Halloween, beware of a man carrying a lantern, because it's sure to be jack-o'-lantern, because his ghost comes back at that time of the year to walk the streets. But when the villagers heard about this, they all went up at night to see what he was doing. And in the cottage he was sitting down at the table and he was counting all the pennies and halfpennies that he had received for the lanterns. And he lived as a miser, but he had thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds hidden in jars and everything around the house. So they cursed him, and that's how he walks the land on Halloween night. Now another pagan story I have is the mythical stories of Ireland, which I will also tell today. The mythical stories were written when the Tuatha Dé Danann governed Ireland. Now the Tuatha Dé Danann were a mythical tribe, and it is said that they went back to the sea when Christianity came. They went back into the sea, and on the last day, when the rest of the world burns, Ireland will go down into the waters deep, because of the fact that the Tuatha Dé Danann swore that they would never let Ireland burn, that it would go back to the sea from whence they came.
Excellent story. Now, so is that how Halloween started? Because of the Day of the Dead? Because of the Celts?
The Day of the Dead?
Yes, the Celts. They celebrate Day of the Dead, and is that how Halloween got started?
That's how you got. And then Saint Francis brought Christianity, and of course in Christianity all these ceremonies were banned.
And jack-o'-lantern, that's how jack-o'-lantern got.
Jack-o'-lantern started. But all the stories were banned prior to Christianity.
Is that right?
And very, very few people talk about pagan Ireland. But there was a big, big community, and in essence, they were going around the world, as far as Mesopotamia, selling gold at that time. You know, they would go out in little ships and they would sell gold and silver, and we had an abundance of wealth in Ireland at that time. There was gold mines, silver mines, all type of ore. And of course, when Cromwell came along, First of all, he forbade the people to speak their own native language, and he would cut the tongues out of anybody that spoke Irish. And consequently, that's where we became an English-speaking country, because people wouldn't speak within hearing in case somebody would report them, and then their tongues would be cut out.
Oh, you know what? Another story I heard, might have been from you or from my lovely wife, about the harpists. That the English wanted to destroy all the harps and kill all the harpists.
The harpists, yes. And then also the bagpipes.
The bagpipes?
They banned the bagpipes.
Oh.
And they eventually went to the north of Ireland and then over to Scotland. That's why we have uilleann pipes now instead of bagpipes, and the bagpipes are related to Scotland instead of to Ireland.
Oh.
But there were many, many harpists, and there's many stories written about harpists in Ireland, and they still play the harp.
And the symbol of Ireland is what?
A harp. A harp. And the thistle is for Scotland, the leek is for Wales, and the crown is for England, because those are the countries that they conquered first before they went out into the world. And today the flags like that still fly. The harp, the shamrock, and the thistle and the crown still fly in parts of England. So it's very, very interesting, to go back into the old history of Ireland.
And you learn all of these storytellers just by people telling you stories when you were growing
essence,
up,
I went
and then
to a
you
school.
will repeat it.
Yeah, well, no, I went to a school that was very into the traditions and cultures of Ireland.
Yes.
And they were a presentation convent, and the nuns would tell stories, and they would tell, the Irish books would be written on all these old stories, Now today, I went through my granddaughter's English book. There's not one good Irish story in the English book. And one thing that annoys me, Frank, more than anything, I think, today, when I travelled back to Ireland, and my husband and I, Lord rest him, we would go twice a year, and all of a sudden, this picture arrives in the airport of all beautiful Irish children, and they're described as Western Europeans.
Western European?
Western European. And I stand in front of that picture every time I go back, and I just say, you're not Western Europeans. You are Irish. Irish through the core.
Now, your art. How many artwork do you do a year? I mean, you must do hundreds of artwork
I
a year.
take an art class on a Wednesday at the Maher Cafe, and I may paint 4 paintings a month.
4 paintings a month? Plus the you have lovely postcards too.
Oh, yes.
Postcards, painting.
I have a show running at the moment. It has been running for the past month, and I have 36 paintings in the show.
And excellent paintings. If anyone out there that wants to look at some good paintings from the top painter here in the Midwest, Maire Crawford. Go up to the Mathers Morning Cafe up on Higgins Road.
On Higgins Road. And I also knit traditional Irish sweaters.
Oh, you knit also?
I knit and I embroider. I embroider cushions with the Irish symbol, the little shamrock. And
I remember one of your shows that you were doing, you had some nice teddy bears
I have a selection of teddy bears.
Yes, excellent.
In all costumes.
Yeah, with the sweaters.
I knit the little sweaters for the football teams around Chicago.
Okay.
And actually, I'm after getting an order for 6 dressed as the bears.
The bears? Well,
the bears for Christmas from some lady. But I can't keep up with the orders for the Irish sweaters. I knit them in children's sizes up to 10-year-old, and recently I've been asked would I knit adult ones. Now the adult ones take a little bit longer to knit, so I kind of have so many orders for the children's that I'm booked up now past Christmas, And you know what's funny, Frank? I have a friend across the road, and she came in on Sunday afternoon, and I had 2 sweaters ready to ship out this morning, and she said, I have to ask you. I said, what, Clara? She said, can you knit me 2 more sweaters? Because the one you knit them when they were born, they've grown out of them. And she said, I passed them down through all of them. So she said, I said, you'll have to wait till after Christmas. And an hour later, there's a knock on the door. And when I open the door, here's these 3 little children on their bicycles with a doll. American Girl doll, this new
yeah,
fancy doll. And the little one says to me, Mummy said you may not do it, but could you knit a sweater for my doll? I said, Sacred Heart, where am I going to get the time? So we had to come in and we had to measure the doll to make sure we get the right size.
Yes.
And I said, you know, you won't be getting this until Santa Claus comes. Oh, that's okay, as long as she has an Irish sweater. And I said, you want an Irish one? No other type will do her except she wants an Irish sweater for her American Girl doll. So I thought that was cute.
No, you're writing. What are you writing now?
Well, right now I'm writing a story on memory.
On memory?
On memory. I started a writers group at the Eisenhower Library 12 and a half years ago.
Yes.
And it's still going strong.
Yes.
And every year in October we pick 12 words for the whole year.
Okay.
And everywhere we have about 14 members.
Yes.
And everybody writes their version on the word.
Oh.
And it's so interesting to see what people come up with just one word.
Memory.
With just one word.
So now in December or
November it's going to be memory.
Memory,
Memory.
And so what kind of story are you going to write on memory?
Well,
I mean, you must have a lot to remember. I mean, all these years you have a lot of
memories, you know. And every year now for the past 12 and a half we have done this with the group, you know. So we're kind of running out of words. Yeah. So everybody now is digging into the dictionary to come up with a word that we haven't written on. Yeah. And now, you know, there's so many new words in the dictionary.
Yes.
There's about 26 new words after being added to the dictionary, to the regular dictionary. But I usually just sit down about 2 nights before the meeting and I think and I write.
Oh, 2 nights before?
About 2 nights. Oh. Sometimes the day of the meeting I'll write the story.
Oh, my.
I'll write the story. But I've always been interested.
But you're always thinking about what to write.
Yeah, well, I'm always thinking about it, you know. And then when I sit down, I'll write it out and then I'll copy it or I'll abbreviate it or spell correct it, you know, and then I take it to the meeting that night, you know. So it's very interesting, Frank, you know, to see what one word can do.
Yes,
you know, and the different stories. And we have it set at one word. You know, that there'll only be that word used in your story. And we allowed 1 free story a year that you can write on anything you want, but only one. You're only allowed 1 free story.
Now, on your writing and your Irish storyteller, did you start that in Ireland or did you start?
No, I started that here when I came to this country. I went to a class on a Saturday afternoon given by the librarian on storytelling. Yes. And she told a story and it was about nature. Yeah. And at that time, the Eisenhower Library had a plot behind where people could grow vegetables and, you know, take them home. So she brought us out into the plot and she said, now when you go back inside, I want you to write a story, whether it's on the fence or what's growing in the plot or the people who are working the plots. So when we went back in, Penny was the lady's name, and I said, Penny, are you interested in forming a writing group? And she said, well, I just wouldn't have the time because she was head of the library. But she said, if you're interested, I'll supply the room. So I started the writing group there. Now,
you have another story to tell. What's that,
Setanta. I'm going to tell an ancient Irish story about Setanta, the boy who became Cuchulainn. Now, Setanta was a king's son, and the kings of Ireland were meeting at one house. And they decided that everybody had to be seated down by 6 o'clock in the evening, because at that time in the evening, the High King would release his hound to protect the castle. And the hound was very, very vicious. So when Setanta's father told him, you've got to be there by 6 o'clock. And he said, yes, I will come, father. He said, don't worry, I will be there. Now, Setanta was the first hurler in all of Ireland. And you know what hurling is? It's played with a ball and it's a shaped stick. It's almost like your hockey, only the stick is wider shaped at the end. But the child was bored, so he picked up a stone and he'd hit it with a stick, and then he'd pick up something else and he'd hit it with a stick. So at that point, Hurley was born, because he went back to the castle and he had the carpenter. He drew out the shape that he wanted the stick to be, and the carpenter made it. And then he got a goatskin ball, because that's the only type of ball that was available back then, and then started the game called Hurley. And it has been going on since that mythical time when Setanta started the game. But the day of the feast, everybody went to the castle. And the father got busy with the High King and all the rest of it when he suddenly remembered that Setanta hadn't come.
Yeah.
But by that time, the king had let the hound out, and the hound was going around the gardens, and he was very, very vicious.
Yeah.
But Setanta had a game of hurley, and when he came back from the game, brought the ball and brought the hockey stick with him. So when he came to the king's house, the hound was going around and around, and he said, how am I going to get past this? How am I going to get in? My father will be so, so angry. So he decided, as the hound came towards him, he came nearer and nearer, he hit the ball, and the ball went into the hound's mouth, and it choked,
Yes.
and the hound died. Well, when the High King came out and saw his hound lying dead on the ground, he was so angry, and Setanta said to him, look, I'll train another hound for you. Now he trained 2 hounds for the king, and in training them they became so vicious and so good at keeping people away from the castle. The king said, come and live with me and be the keeper of the hounds.
Yeah.
So in living with him, he said, I'm going to change your name to Cú Chulainn, which means Cullen of the Hound.
Oh.
Cú Chulainn.
Yeah.
And ever after that, the boy Setanta was called Cú Chulainn. And he lived out his life protecting the king's ground with his hounds.
Yeah.
Now the hounds wouldn't attack him, but anybody that was strange that would come to the castle, they would attack. So the king made him live with him for the rest of his life, called Cú Chulainn instead of Setanta. And that's one of the old stories of Ireland's mythical people. Yeah. They're mythical people.
Oh, excellent. Now, you have a poem that you like.
I do.
Yeah.
As I say, I've been an actress all my life.
Oh, yes, I know that.
I've been an actress all my life. And my mother used to say, stop crying, don't be putting that act on. That's the way.
Sounds like my wife.
Stop crying, don't be putting that act on. But this poem I learned many, many years ago, and it was written for Patrick Pearse.
Okay,
now,
yes.
Patrick Pearse was one of the revolutionaries during the 1916 Rising.
Yes.
And this poem was written by his mother in honour of her 2 sons.
Yes.
She lost 2 sons. And it's called The Mother. I do not grudge them, Lord. I do not grudge my 2 strong sons who went out and died for Ireland. My heart aches for them, but I know they're in a better place now, and Ireland one day will be free, for I know that they shared with their friends a religion that said, no matter what, Ireland had to come out of the bondage and be free.
Yes, excellent. And they made a song out of that, too.
They did make a song out of that.
Yes,
yeah.
very
I'm not a
lovely
singer,
song.
Frank.
Huh?
My husband was a musician.
Yes, and you were the
he
poet.
always told me that I sang out of key. So consequently, when he was around, I never sang. But now in the house, it's so lonely at times.
Yes.
I sing and I just say, I don't care whether it's out of key, sweetheart.
Yes.
I'm singing.
Well, your husband was a musician.
He was a musician.
He must have wrote songs.
And he was a painter.
And you're the award-winning writer.
Writer and
actress. Irish storyteller.
Yeah. Well, you know what, we used to do
actress,
a program. The program that I did in Maher at the weekend, I made all the actors.